What happens when an entire galaxy decides that one species is too dangerous to exist? When every advanced civilization, every star-spanning empire, every peaceful federation agrees that humanity must be contained, isolated, and forgotten? They should have killed us when they had the chance. For 300 years, humanity has been trapped behind an impenetrable barrier, cut off from the stars that once called to them. The Galactic Concordat thought they had solved their human problem by building a prison around Earth's solar system. They believed that without access to their technology, their trade routes, their knowledge, humanity would simply fade away. But they underestimated one crucial thing about humans: when you corner them, when you tell them they can't have something, when you try to break their spirit with isolation and abandonment, they don't surrender. They innovate. They adapt. They build weapons. Now, after centuries of forced solitude, humanity has done the impossible. They've transformed their greatest achievement into the galaxy's greatest nightmare. The UES Retribution isn't just a starship anymore. It's a planet-breaking weapon forged from human ingenuity, desperation, and an unquenchable thirst for the stars that were stolen from them. The galaxy wanted to forget about humanity. Soon, they'll find that impossible to do. Admiral Sarah Chen stood before the massive viewport of the UES Retribution's command deck, watching the swirling blue energies of the barrier that had imprisoned humanity for 3 centuries. The massive wall of exotic energy stretched infinitely in all directions around Earth's solar system, a cage built by alien hands to contain what they considered the galaxy's greatest threat. Today, that cage would finally be broken. Behind her, the bridge buzzed with quiet efficiency. 300 years of isolation had taught humanity to be precise, to waste nothing, to make every resource count. The crew moved with practiced grace between stations that hummed with technologies the rest of the galaxy had never seen. Technologies born from desperation, refined by necessity, and perfected through generations of humans who refused to accept their imprisonment. Admiral, called Lieutenant Commander Rivera from the tactical station. All primary systems are showing green. The Worldbreaker cannon is fully charged and ready for deployment. Chen nodded, her reflection ghost-like in the viewport's surface. At 54, she had spent her entire military career preparing for this moment. Her grandmother had been there when the barrier first activated, trapping humanity's small fleet of exploration vessels on the wrong side of the prison walls. Her father had died in the desperate early attempts to break through. Now it was her turn to carry the torch of human defiance. "Engineering report," she commanded, her voice carrying across the bridge. Chief Engineer Marcus Webb's voice crackled through the comm system from deep within the ship's modified hull. "Admiral, I've got to say it one more time. What we're about to do has never been tested at full power. The theoretical models all check out, but turning an entire planet into a kinetic projectile? We're in uncharted territory." Chen allowed herself a thin smile. "Chief, humanity has been in uncharted territory since the day the galaxy decided we were too dangerous to exist." "How's the planetary anchor?" "Locked and loaded, ma'am. Mars is secure in our gravitational field generators. All safety protocols are bypassed as ordered. When you give the word, we'll have ourselves a 3-trillion-ton cannonball." The bridge fell silent except for the low thrum of the ship's revolutionary power systems. The UES Retribution was humanity's greatest achievement, a vessel that had taken 2 centuries to design and another to build. It wasn't just a starship anymore. It was something entirely new, something the galaxy's advanced civilizations couldn't have imagined in their worst nightmares. Originally commissioned as humanity's flagship colony vessel, the Retribution had been designed to carry 50,000 colonists to distant worlds. That dream died with the barrier's construction. But humans were nothing if not adaptable. Over the decades, they had transformed their colony ship into something unprecedented, a mobile weapons platform capable of manipulating planetary-scale objects with precise gravitational control. "Communications, any response from the Galactic Concordat?" Chen asked. Ensign Park shook her head. "Nothing, Admiral. They're maintaining their position at the edge of the system, just watching. 347 vessels, representing every major species in the Concordat. They don't seem to believe we're actually going to do this." Then, they're about to learn something about human determination, Chen replied. Display tactical overview. The main screen shifted to show the solar system in 3 dimensions. Earth glowed blue-green in the center, surrounded by the shimmering barrier that had defined humanity's universe for so long. Beyond it, arrayed in what they clearly thought was a safe formation, the combined fleet of the Galactic Concordat waited. Representatives of the Altari Empire, the Zira Federation, the collective minds of the Silicon Hegemony, and dozens of other species that had once welcomed humanity to the stars. That welcome had lasted exactly 47 years. Humanity's crime had been simple: they were too good at war. Not because they were naturally violent, but because they approached conflict with the same innovative spirit they brought to everything else. While other species had stagnated in their military thinking, locked into traditional tactics that had worked for millennia, humans had revolutionized warfare in less than half a century. They had studied every conflict, analyzed every defeat, and learned from every victory. They had turned asymmetric warfare into an art form, created new weapons systems that other species couldn't counter, and developed strategies that left even the galaxy's oldest military minds baffled. When the Helix War broke out between the Altari Empire and the Void Collective, humanity's offer to help had been eagerly accepted. The war lasted 18 months instead of the predicted 50 years. Humanity's tactical innovations had broken a stalemate that had consumed resources for decades. But, instead of gratitude, their success had bred fear. If humans could end a galactic conflict so quickly, what would happen when they decided to wage one of their own? The solution had been elegant in its simplicity: contain them. Build a prison they couldn't escape, and let time take care of the rest. The barrier had been the greatest collaborative effort in galactic history, a project that unified traditional enemies in their shared fear of humanity's potential. Admiral, Rivera called out, studying her sensor readings with a frown. I'm detecting some unusual energy signatures from the Concordat fleet. It looks like they're beginning to power up their weapons systems. Chen studied the tactical display with interest. After 3 centuries, they're finally showing some spine. Good. I was beginning to think this would be boring. The truth was, the Concordat fleet represented the most powerful military force ever assembled. Each ship was a masterpiece of their respective civilizations' technology, crewed by the finest officers in the galaxy. Under normal circumstances, humanity's single vessel would have been vaporized in seconds. But circumstances hadn't been normal for 300 years. All stations report ready for Operation Breakout, Rivera announced. Chen took a deep breath and opened a channel to the entire ship. Her voice echoed through corridors that housed not just a crew, but an entire civilization's hopes. Attention all hands. This is Admiral Chen. For 3 centuries, our species has been caged like dangerous animals, cut off from the stars that called to us. Today, we answer that call. Today, we show the galaxy what happens when you try to chain the human spirit. Today, we break free. She closed the channel and turned to face her bridge crew. Each face showed the same mixture of anticipation and grim determination that she felt in her own heart. These weren't just soldiers, they were the inheritors of generations of defiance, the products of a species that refused to accept defeat even in the face of impossible odds. Chief Webb, she called to engineering. Initiate planetary capture sequence. Deep within the Retribution's hull, systems that had no equivalent anywhere in the galaxy began to hum with power. Gravitational field generators, designed using principles that human physicists had discovered during their long isolation, reached out across space toward Mars. The red planet, smaller than Earth but still massive beyond comprehension, began to respond to forces that bent the fundamental laws of physics. On the bridge, displays showed Mars slowly changing its orbit, pulled inexorably toward the massive Starship. The process looked deceptively gentle, but the energies involved were staggering. The Retribution was essentially becoming an artificial gravity well, using technologies that the rest of the galaxy still considered theoretical impossibilities. Target acquired and secured, Webb reported. Mars is now under our complete gravitational control. Planetary mass is stable and ready for deployment. Chen nodded and turned her attention back to the tactical display. The Concordat fleet was definitely reacting now, their formations shifting from observation to combat readiness. Energy signatures spiked as weapons came online and defensive systems activated. They were finally beginning to understand what humanity was capable of. "Admiral," Park called from communications. "We're receiving a transmission from the Concordat fleet. It's Fleet Admiral Kefvar of the Altari Empire." On screen, the view screen shifted to show an imposing figure in elaborate military regalia. The Altari were tall, graceful beings with crystalline features that reflected light in hypnotic patterns. Kefvar had been one of the architects of the barrier, a military genius who had helped coordinate the imprisonment of humanity. His expression now showed something that might have been respect, mixed with unmistakable fear. "Admiral Chen," Kefvar's translated voice filled the bridge. "I greet you in the name of the Galactic Concordat. We have observed your preparations. I call upon you to reconsider this course of action. The barrier was not built from malice, but from necessity. Your species' potential for destruction is too great to be unleashed upon the galaxy." Chen studied the alien admiral for a long moment. "Fleet Admiral Kefvar. I remember reading about you in the historical records. You were there when we helped end the Helix War. You personally decorated human officers for their service. Tell me, was our potential for destruction too great then?" Kefvar's crystalline features seemed to dim slightly. "You must understand, Admiral. What your species accomplished in those 18 months terrified every military mind in the galaxy. You didn't just win a war, you revolutionized it. You made centuries of military doctrine obsolete overnight. The Concordat could not allow such capabilities to remain unchecked. So instead of treating us as equals, you chose to treat us as prisoners," Chen replied. "For 300 years, you've denied us the stars. You've cut us off from trade, from exploration, from the simple right to expand beyond our own solar system. Did you really think we would simply accept that?" "We hoped," Kefvar admitted. "We hoped that isolation would temper your species' aggressive instincts. We hoped that time would teach you wisdom." Chen's laugh was sharp and bitter. "You hoped we would become tame. You hoped we would forget what it meant to be human. But you made a critical error in your calculations, Fleet Admiral. You assumed that caging us would make us weaker. Instead, you gave us 3 centuries to become something you never expected." She gestured toward the tactical display, where Mars hung in space like a captured moon. "You thought the barrier would limit us. Instead, it became our laboratory. You thought cutting us off from galactic technology would handicap us. Instead, it forced us to innovate beyond anything you could imagine. You thought trapping us in one solar system would contain our capabilities. Instead, it concentrated them." The Retribution shuddered slightly as its gravitational fields adjusted, maintaining perfect control over Mars while the massive planet continued its slow approach. On the tactical display, the Concordat fleet was spreading out, clearly preparing for some kind of coordinated attack. It was a sound tactical decision, but Chen knew it wouldn't matter. "Admiral Chen," Kefvar continued, his voice now carrying a note of genuine desperation. "What you are contemplating will destroy the peace that has existed in this galaxy for centuries. If you use that planet as a weapon against the barrier, the resulting explosion will be visible from 1,000 light-years away. Every species in the galaxy will know that humanity has broken free." "Good," Chen replied simply. "Let them know. Let them understand that 3 centuries of imprisonment have only made us stronger. Let them realize that trying to cage the human spirit was the greatest strategic error in galactic history." She turned to Rivera at the tactical station. "Commander, target the weakest point in the barrier structure. I want maximum impact with minimal collateral damage to the Concordat fleet." "Target acquired, Admiral. The barrier's primary generator nexus is locked in. One planet-sized kinetic strike should be sufficient to cause a cascading failure across the entire containment field." Kefvar's image flickered as his ship's sensors undoubtedly detected the Retribution's targeting systems coming online. "Admiral, please. The Concordat is prepared to discuss terms. We can negotiate a conditional lifting of the barrier, Supervised re-entry into galactic society. There doesn't have to be violence. Chen considered this for a moment, her expression thoughtful. Conditional. Supervised. Even now, even facing what we become, you still think you can dictate terms to humanity. You still don't understand what you're dealing with. She moved closer to the screen, her eyes locked on Kefvar's alien features. Fleet Admiral, 3 centuries ago, you helped build a prison around my species because you were afraid of what we might become. Today, you're about to discover that your fears were completely justified. The connection ended, leaving the bridge in tense silence. Chen turned back to the viewport, where the barrier's energies continued their eternal dance. Somewhere beyond that wall lay the galaxy that had rejected humanity, the stars that had been declared off-limits, the future that had been stolen from her species. All stations, prepare for planetary deployment, she commanded. Today, we take back the stars. The moment Admiral Chen gave the final command, the UES Retribution transformed from a starship into something the galaxy had never seen before. Mars, held in the grip of humanity's revolutionary gravitational technology, began to accelerate toward the barrier at speeds that defied conventional physics. The red planet, with its 3 trillion-ton mass, became a kinetic weapon of unimaginable destructive potential. Chief Engineer Webb's voice echoed through the bridge with barely controlled excitement. Admiral, all systems are performing beyond theoretical parameters. Mars is maintaining structural integrity at 0.75 light speed and accelerating. Impact with the barrier in 30 seconds. The Concordat fleet finally understood what they were witnessing. Panic spread through their ranks like wildfire as 347 of the galaxy's most advanced warships desperately tried to clear the impact zone. Their weapons, designed to fight conventional space battles, were utterly useless against a planet-sized projectile moving at relativistic speeds. Admiral Kefvar's fleet was transmitting on every frequency, their messages a mixture of threats, pleas, and desperate warnings to other Concordat forces throughout the galaxy. But it was too late for warnings. Humanity had spent 3 centuries preparing for this moment, calculating every variable, perfecting every system. The barrier, that symbol of galactic unity and human imprisonment, was about to become the greatest fireworks display in galactic history. Impact in 10 seconds, Rivera called out, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what they were witnessing. 9, 8, 7. Chen gripped the railing of the command platform, her knuckles white with tension. 300 years of human dreams, hopes, and defiance were concentrated in this single moment. Either they would break free and reclaim their birthright among the stars, or they would die in the most spectacular failure in human history. 3, 2, 1, impact. Mars struck the barrier at nearly the speed of light. The explosion was beyond description. The planet's massive kinetic energy, accumulated during its gravitational acceleration, met the exotic energy fields that had contained humanity for 3 centuries. Reality itself seemed to buckle and twist as forces that were never meant to interact collided with devastating results. The barrier, that masterpiece of galactic engineering, lasted exactly 4.7 seconds against humanity's unconventional approach to problem-solving. Cascading failures rippled across the containment field as Mars's incredible momentum shattered the delicate balance of energies that maintained the prison walls. What had taken the combined efforts of 47 species decades to construct was undone in less time than it takes to draw a breath. The shockwave that followed was visible across half the galaxy. Ancient sensors on distant worlds registered the energy release as a new star being born and immediately dying. The barrier's collapse sent ripples through hyperspace that would be felt for years, disrupting navigation and communication networks across dozens of star systems. When the chaos finally cleared, the UES Retribution hung alone in space where the barrier had once been. Mars was gone, its sacrifice complete, but its destruction had purchased something invaluable: freedom. Status report, Chen commanded, her voice cutting through the stunned silence on the bridge. All systems operational, Rivera replied, checking her displays with professional calm that belied the historic nature of what they had just accomplished. The barrier is completely destroyed. Long-range sensors are detecting clear space in all directions for the first time in 3 centuries. The tactical display updated to show the aftermath. Where the Concordat fleet had once waited in organized formations, now only scattered groups of ships remained. Many had been damaged by the shockwave, their advanced shielding systems overloaded by energies they were never designed to handle. Others were fleeing at maximum speed, carrying word of humanity's breakout to every corner of the galaxy. But not all of the Concordat forces were retreating. Admiral Kethvar's flagship, a massive Altari dreadnought called the Harmony of Spheres, remained in position along with approximately 50 other vessels. These were the elite units, the finest ships and crews that each species could provide. They had positioned themselves between the Retribution and the escape route to the outer galaxy. Admiral, Park called from communications. "We're receiving another transmission from Fleet Admiral Kethvar." "Let's hear what he has to say now," Chen replied. Kethvar's image appeared on the screen, but he looked very different than before. His crystalline features, which had previously glowed with inner light, now seemed dimmed and fractured. The explosion had clearly affected him personally, perhaps through some aspect of Altari physiology that humans didn't fully understand. "Admiral Chen," he began, his translated voice carrying overtones of pain and something that might have been admiration. "You have accomplished the impossible. The barrier that represented the unity and determination of 47 species has been destroyed by human ingenuity and one planet used as a hammer. I confess, we underestimated your capabilities." Chen studied the alien commander with interest. "Are you here to surrender, Fleet Admiral? Or do you have some other dramatic gesture in mind?" Kethvar's image flickered, possibly due to damage to his ship's systems. "Neither, Admiral. I am here to offer you a challenge. The Concordat made an error in judgment 3 centuries ago. We treated a potential ally as a threat, and, in doing so, we created the very enemy we feared. But that error can still be corrected." "I'm listening," Chen replied, though her tone suggested limited patience. "Single combat," Kethvar announced. "Your ship against mine. Winner takes all. If you defeat the Harmony of Spheres, the remaining Concordat forces will withdraw and humanity will be free to rejoin galactic society on equal terms. If I defeat the Retribution, your species returns to Earth voluntarily and accepts a new, less restrictive containment arrangement." The bridge fell silent as everyone absorbed this unexpected proposal. Chief Webb's voice crackled over the calm system from engineering. "Admiral, with all due respect, that Altari dreadnought outguns us by a factor of 10. It's got weapons systems we've never seen before and armor that could probably withstand a direct hit from our main cannon." Shin smiled, an expression that would have chilled the blood of anyone who knew humanity's history. "Chief, how long did it take us to adapt our gravitational field generators for planetary manipulation?" "About 18 months of intensive modification, ma'am." "And how long have we had to study Concordat ship designs through our sensor arrays?" There was a pause as Webb considered the implications. 3 centuries, Admiral." "Exactly." Chen turned back to Kethvar's image. "Fleet Admiral, I accept your challenge. Single combat, winner takes all. But I want to add one condition of my own." "Name it." "When I win," Chen said with quiet confidence, "I want every species in the Concordat to understand exactly what happened here. I want them to know that humanity doesn't need their permission to exist among the stars. I want them to understand that 3 centuries of forced evolution have created something they never imagined possible." Kethvar nodded slowly. "Agreed. Prepare for combat, Admiral Chen. May the best species survive." The connection ended, leaving the bridge buzzing with quiet activity as the crew prepared for a battle that would determine humanity's future. Chen moved to the tactical station where Rivera was analyzing the Altari dreadnought's specifications. "What are we looking at, Commander?" Rivera pulled up a detailed schematic of the Harmony of Spheres. "She's impressive, Admiral. 2 kilometers long, armed with plasma cannons that could vaporize a small moon, protected by energy shields that could deflect anything we've previously considered as weapons. Her crew complement is 8,000 of the finest Altari officers, and her tactical systems are backed by artificial intelligences that have been studying warfare for millennia." Chen studied the display with professional interest. "Intimidating. What are her weaknesses? That's the problem, ma'am. She doesn't seem to have any obvious vulnerabilities. The Altari designed her to be the perfect synthesis of their technological capabilities. She's basically unstoppable using conventional tactics. Good thing we've never been particularly conventional, Chen replied. She opened a channel to engineering. Chief Webb, I need you to prepare the gravitational field generators for combat configuration. We're going to show the galaxy what 3 centuries of human innovation looks like. Admiral. What exactly did you have in mind? Chen's smile was sharp as a blade. We're going to turn their greatest strength into their greatest weakness. The harmony of spheres is a masterpiece of engineering, Chief. Every system perfectly balanced, every component precisely calibrated. But, what happens when you introduce forces that their designers never considered? Understanding dawned in Webb's voice. Gravitational stress fractures. If we can create localized field fluctuations around their hull, we could literally pull their ship apart at the molecular level. Exactly. How long do you need to recalibrate our systems? Give me 10 minutes, Admiral. Chen turned back to the tactical display, studying the formations as both fleets prepared for combat. The remaining Concordat vessels had pulled back to a safe distance, forming a loose perimeter around the combat zone. Their sensors would record every detail of the engagement, transmitting data back to their homeworlds in real time. Win or lose, this battle would be analyzed by military strategists across the galaxy for centuries to come. The harmony of spheres was moving into position, her massive bulk graceful despite her size. Energy readings showed her weapons systems coming online, and the space around her began to shimmer as her defensive shields activated. She was beautiful in the way that only the most advanced technology could be, a work of art that happened to be capable of destroying entire star systems. Admiral, Rivera called out. I'm detecting unusual energy patterns from the Altari vessel. It looks like they're charging some kind of weapon system we've never seen before. Chen nodded. They've been holding back their best technology, waiting for a situation desperate enough to justify its use. Apparently, fighting humanity qualifies. The next few minutes passed in tense preparation as both vessels readied themselves for combat. Engineers on both ships made final adjustments to weapons systems and defensive arrays. Tactical officers ran through battle scenarios and contingency plans. Medical teams prepared for casualties that might never come, since this was likely to be decided quickly one way or another. All systems ready, Admiral, Rivera reported. Gravitational field generators are configured for combat operations. We're as ready as we're going to be. Chen took her position at the center of the bridge, surrounded by displays showing every aspect of both vessels' status. The moment she had trained for her entire life was finally here. Not just her life, but the culmination of 3 centuries of human determination, innovation, and refusal to accept defeat. Open a channel to the harmony of spheres. Kethvar's image appeared one final time, his alien features now showing something that might have been respect. Admiral Chen. Are you prepared to begin? Fleet Admiral Kethvar, Chen replied formally. For 300 years, your species and your allies have kept humanity caged like dangerous animals. Today, we show you what we've learned in our cage. Today, you discover what happens when you try to contain the unconquerable. Both commanders ended the transmission simultaneously. The die was cast, the challenge accepted. 2 vessels, representing the pinnacle of their respective civilizations' capabilities, faced each other across the void where humanity's prison had once stood. The battle for humanity's future was about to begin. The first shots of humanity's greatest battle were fired simultaneously. The harmony of spheres unleashed a barrage of plasma bolts that could have sterilized a continent, each one precisely targeted at the Retribution's critical systems. At the same instant, Admiral Chan activated humanity's most closely guarded secret, gravitational warfare. The human ship didn't return fire in any conventional sense. Instead, the space around the Altari dreadnought began to ripple and twist as the Retribution's gravitational field generators created localized distortions in the fabric of reality itself. The harmony of spheres, designed to withstand energy weapons and kinetic impacts, had never been tested against forces that could bend spacetime. Direct hits on sections 7 through 12, Rivera reported as the Altari plasma barrage struck the Retribution's hull. Armor holding, but we're showing significant damage to the outer plating. Admiral Chen watched the tactical display with clinical interest. The Altari weapons were indeed impressive, but they were designed to fight conventional enemies using predictable tactics. The Retribution's armor had been specifically engineered to dissipate energy weapons, using techniques developed during 3 centuries of intensive research. Return fire, Chen commanded. Show them what we've learned about precision. The Retribution's response was subtle but devastating. Instead of massive energy blasts or kinetic projectiles, the human ship created microscopic gravitational anomalies throughout the harmony of Sphere's hull structure. These tiny distortions, invisible to conventional sensors, began to propagate through the crystalline matrices that formed the backbone of Altari construction technology. Fleet Admiral Kethvar felt the attack before his instruments detected it. As a member of a species with natural sensitivity to gravitational fields, he experienced the human weapon as a deep, unsettling vibration that seemed to emanate from within his own body. Around him, his bridge crew began to show signs of disorientation as the ship's structure started resonating at frequencies that Altari physiology found deeply disturbing. "Damage report," he called out, struggling to maintain his composure as the gravitational distortions intensified. "No significant structural damage detected," his tactical officer replied, confusion evident in his crystalline voice. "But something is affecting our hull integrity at the molecular level. It's as if the ship is being slowly pulled apart by forces we cannot measure." Kethvar's understanding of human capabilities underwent a rapid and unwelcome expansion. 3 centuries of isolation hadn't weakened humanity, it had transformed them into something unprecedented. They weren't just using advanced technology, they were rewriting the fundamental rules of space combat. Aboard the Retribution, Chief Engineer Webb monitored the gravitational assault with professional satisfaction. "Admiral, their hull structure is beginning to show stress fractures. The crystalline matrices are resonating at their natural frequency. We should be able to cause a cascading failure within the next few minutes." "Belay that," Chun ordered, surprising everyone on the bridge. "Reduce gravitational field intensity by 60%. Rivera looked up from her station with confusion. "Admiral, we have them. Their ship is essentially defenseless against gravitational warfare. We could end this engagement right now." Chen nodded. "Yes, we could. But that would teach the galaxy the wrong lesson. They need to understand that we're not monsters. We're not the threat they convinced themselves we were 3 centuries ago. We're something else entirely." She opened a channel to the harmony of spheres. Kethvar's image appeared, but the Altari Admiral looked shaken. His crystalline features were flickering rapidly, a sign of severe stress in his species. "Fleet Admiral," Chen began, her voice carrying across space to the damaged Altari vessel. "I could destroy your ship in the next 30 seconds. My gravitational weapons could tear the harmony of spheres apart at the subatomic level, and there's nothing in your arsenal that could stop me. Do you understand this?" Kethvar nodded slowly, his alien dignity intact despite his obvious distress. "I understand, Admiral Chen. Humanity has indeed evolved beyond our predictions. You have created weapons that render our defenses meaningless." "Good," Chen replied. "Now, let me show you what else we've learned during our imprisonment." To the amazement of both crews, the Retribution's gravitational fields suddenly shifted. Instead of attacking the harmony of spheres, they began to stabilize the stress fractures that the human weapons had created. The resonance patterns that had been slowly tearing the Altari ship apart were carefully neutralized, restoring structural integrity to the massive dreadnought. "You're repairing our ship?" Kethvar asked, his confusion evident even through the universal translator. "I'm demonstrating something that the Galactic Concordat apparently never learned," Chen explained. "Power without restraint is not strength, it's the behavior of wild animals. Humanity has had 3 centuries to become monsters, Fleet Admiral. Instead, we chose to become something better. The space around both vessels calmed as the Retribution's gravitational fields returned to normal operational parameters. The immediate threat was over, but the implications of what had just occurred would reverberate through galactic politics for generations. Chen continued her broadcast, but now she addressed not just Kethvar, but the entire Concordat fleet and the recording devices that were transmitting this encounter across the galaxy. To every species watching this confrontation, humanity has spent 300 years in the cage you built for us. You imprisoned us because you feared what we might become if left unchecked. Today, you've seen what we actually became. She gestured toward the tactical display, where the harmony of spheres hung in space, damaged but intact. We developed weapons that could destroy your finest vessels without effort. We could have used Mars as the first of many planet-sized kinetic strikes. We could have emerged from our isolation as conquerors, taking by force what was denied to us by treaty. The transmission reached ships throughout the Concordat fleet, and, through them, relay stations that would carry the message to every inhabited world in the galaxy. History was being made, and Chen intended to ensure that the lesson was clear. But we chose a different path, she continued. 3 centuries of forced evolution taught us something that apparently escaped the galaxy's advanced civilizations. True strength isn't measured by your capacity for destruction. It's measured by your ability to choose mercy when destruction would be easier. Admiral Kethvar's image flickered as his ship's systems struggled to process what had occurred. Admiral Chen, I confess I do not understand your actions. You had achieved complete victory. Why did you choose to spare us? Chen smiled, and, for the first time in the conversation, it was a warm expression rather than the cold threat it had been before. Because, Fleet Admiral, humanity's greatest strength was never our capacity for warfare. Our greatest strength is our ability to see potential allies instead of permanent enemies. She turned to address her own crew, but spoke loudly enough for the open channel to carry her words to the Concordat forces. 3 centuries ago, the galaxy made a decision based on fear. They saw what humanity accomplished in the Helix War and decided we were too dangerous to exist alongside civilized species. That decision created exactly the enemy they feared we might become. The bridge of the Retribution was silent except for the quiet hum of advanced technology and the soft breathing of a crew that was witnessing the end of humanity's long isolation. Outside the viewports, the stars that had been forbidden to them for 300 years waited with infinite patience. But fear is a choice, Chen continued. And, today, I'm offering the galaxy a different choice. You can continue to see humanity as a threat to be contained, in which case you'll discover that our capabilities have grown far beyond anything you imagined. Or you can see us as we actually are, a species that turns challenges into opportunities, problems into innovations, and enemies into allies. Chief Engineer Webb's voice crackled over the comm system. Admiral, I'm detecting multiple hyperdrive signatures. It looks like more Concordat vessels are arriving in system. Rivera checked her sensors and nodded confirmation. Confirmed, Admiral. I count at least 200 additional ships dropping out of hyperspace. Looks like word of our breakout has reached the core worlds. Chen studied the tactical display as new contacts appeared throughout the outer system. Representatives of dozens of species were arriving to witness the aftermath of humanity's escape. The prison break that had begun with a single planet used as a kinetic weapon was becoming the most significant diplomatic event in galactic history. Fleet Admiral Kethvar, Chen said, turning back to the Altari commander. It appears we're about to have a much larger audience for our conversation. I'd like to propose something that might surprise you. I believe I am beyond surprise at this point, Admiral Chen. Join us, Chen said simply. Not as subjects or prisoners, but as equals. Humanity has spent 3 centuries developing technologies and capabilities that could benefit every species in the galaxy. We've learned to manipulate gravity, to bend spacetime, to use entire planets as tools. But, more importantly, we've learned to use power responsibly. She gestured toward the viewports where the approaching Concordat reinforcements were visible as tiny points of light. Those ships are arriving because their crews expect to find a war. They expect to discover that humanity has finally become the monster you all feared. Instead, they're going to find something unprecedented in galactic history, a species that broke free from containment and chose diplomacy over conquest. Kefvar was quiet for a long moment, his crystalline features flickering as he processed the implications of Chen's offer. You are suggesting an alliance between humanity and the Galactic Concordat? After 3 centuries of imprisonment? I'm suggesting something more radical than an alliance, Chen replied. I'm suggesting that the galaxy finally live up to the ideals it claimed to represent when the Concordat was first formed. True cooperation between species, based on mutual respect rather than fear. Shared knowledge instead of hoarded secrets. Exploration of the universe's mysteries as partners instead of competitors. The tactical display updated as the new arrivals took up positions throughout the system. The Retribution was now surrounded by over 500 of the galaxy's most advanced warships, representing every major species and several dozen minor ones. Under normal circumstances, it would have been the prelude to the most one-sided battle in galactic history. But circumstances hadn't been normal since the moment Mars struck the barrier. Admiral, Rivera called out softly. I'm detecting weapons signatures from the incoming fleet. It looks like they're preparing for combat operations. Chen nodded. Open a general broadcast channel. All frequencies, maximum range. When the communication array was ready, Chen addressed not just the assembled fleet, but every listening post and relay station throughout the galaxy. Her words would be heard on thousands of worlds, by billions of sentient beings who had grown up believing that humanity was too dangerous to exist among civilized species. To all vessels of the Galactic Concordat, and to every species listening to this transmission, I am Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earthship Retribution. Today, humanity has broken free from 3 centuries of imprisonment. We have demonstrated capabilities that your finest scientists consider impossible. We have weapons that could threaten entire star systems, and the will to use them if necessary. She paused, letting the weight of those words settle across space. But we choose a different path. We choose to offer the galaxy something it has never seen before, a species that measures its strength not by what it can destroy, but by what it can create. Not by what it can take, but by what it can give. The communication channel carried her voice to the furthest reaches of known space, where alien civilizations that had never encountered humanity directly finally heard from the species they had helped to imprison. The Galactic Concordat was founded on the principle that diverse species could work together for mutual benefit. Today, I invite you to honor that principle. Not by containing the dangerous, but by embracing the different. Admiral Kefvar's response came not as words, but as action. The harmony of spheres began powering down its weapons systems, followed moments later by the other ships in his original fleet. It was a gesture of trust that would have been unthinkable hours earlier, when the barrier still stood and humanity was safely contained. The effect rippled through the assembled Concordat forces as ship after ship followed the Altari Admiral's example. Weapons powered down, shields lowered, and combat formations dissolved into something resembling a diplomatic formation. Fear was giving way to curiosity, and curiosity was the first step toward understanding. Admiral Chen, Kefvar's voice carried new overtones as he spoke. On behalf of the Galactic Concordat, I formally invite humanity to rejoin galactic civilization. Not as subjects or supervised probationers, but as equals among equals. Your species has demonstrated capabilities that could benefit us all, but, more importantly, you have demonstrated wisdom in their application. Chen felt 3 centuries of human dreams crystallizing into reality. The stars that had been forbidden were finally open again, waiting for human ships and human explorers to rediscover the galaxy that had tried to forget them. Fleet Admiral, she replied formally. On behalf of humanity, I accept your invitation. But understand that we're not the same species you imprisoned 3 centuries ago. We've evolved beyond your predictions, beyond your fears, and beyond your ability to contain us. We return to the galaxy as partners, not as subjects. As if to punctuate her words, the tactical display showed more human ships emerging from the inner solar system. The Retribution had not come alone. Behind her came the products of 3 centuries of human shipbuilding, vessels that incorporated technologies the rest of the galaxy was only beginning to understand, crewed by humans who had spent their entire lives preparing for this moment. The prison was broken. The cage was empty. And humanity, scarred but not broken by 3 centuries of isolation, was finally free to reclaim their birthright among the stars. The galaxy had shunned them, thinking isolation would make them weak. Instead, it had made them unstoppable.